I want to talk a little bit about what the Broncos have in Brett Rypien and the style of quarterback that he needs to be successful. So what's important for a young quarterback coming into the league? Like this is his first start. We're talking about
quick eyes and a quick clock.
Yeah, isn't that the most important thing?
Yeah.
It seems though, like in the scouting community, and I'm not trying to thump these guys too hard, but it seems in the scouting community that tends to get overlooked, and most people think those guys have to go later in the draft. If you're a quick release guy, that isn't always a trait that the scouts are looking for at the top of a draft.
Well, a quick release is. I think what you really mean is just getting the ball out quick, but a weaker armed kind of guy.
Right.
And here's the scouting mindset behind that is that if you got size and tools, then theoretically your coaches can coach them into something. That's why you have them. And they would stand there and they would say Josh Allen is an example of that. You know, he's a guy who had almost no accuracy, wasn't the quickest release, but, you know, it took him 3 years and we got him there. Ben Roethlisberger, same kind of story with him. But go back through and try to find me some guys that maybe didn't have the size and had a weaker arm and that had success. You know, they created a whole new offense and all of a sudden Joe Montana took off. Joe Montana didn't have a big arm. But there's really, it's few and far between. The Colt McCoys of this world tend to be the Colt McCoys of this world, you know, and not having a high velocity arm at the NFL level is tough. Well, unless you're Chad Pennington, who made up for it with just elite ball placement and being just so savvy and so smart, it's so tough to make up for the fact that you can't throw the ball down the field. So now the safeties compress the box and compress those throwing lanes, and they're going to break on the ball. And if the ball's lollipopped out of there, those fast DBs are going to break on and intercept it.
Okay, so, but it seems like we got to find a demarcation here a little bit because you're talking about a weak arm where, again, the ball doesn't get there with any kind of velocity. He's got pro velocity, doesn't he?
It's below average pro velocity.
Okay, but it's enough.
And Alex Smith has made a career out of it.
But right, exactly. And we can find examples of guys that have done that. So that's where I kind of come back to this thing where we get stuck on the arm strength, I think a little bit more, and the speed or whatever else that they have that say, oh, that guy has to go in the first round. Brought it up, Josh Allen, Mountain West quarterback. It's not like you had to play in the SEC or play one of the premier offensive. I mean, he played a pro style, right? I mean, close enough.
More or less.
Close enough.
Pro concepts.
But,
yeah.
I mean, Brett Rypien played pretty close, right?
Yeah, it's
to pro style
offense.
Boise State.
That Boise State offense was it had some pro concept to it.
Over 13,000 passing yards, 90 touchdowns, and 29 interceptions in 4 seasons. He showed a level of consistency. He got better in several metrics as time wore on. What I guess I don't understand is from a scouting perspective, and this is why I'm leaning on you, why does a guy like that go undrafted with those kinds of numbers versus somebody else that has a strong arm, but we all expect will throw sub 60%, will have accuracy issues downfield at times. Why are those guys so far apart?
Well, I think that, first of all, if numbers in college mattered, we'd be sitting here talking about Hall of Famer Case Keenum because he's the all-time passing yardage leader.
That's true.
Timmy Chang, B.J. Simmons. I can go on and on with guys. To be honest with you, in the top 25 all-time collegiate passer, all-time yardage, only 2 of those guys had successful careers. 2 out of those 25.
But Case Keenum is different.
Well, hang on. 2 out of those 25. It's what's his name? McNair.
Yep.
And Phil Rivers. The rest of these guys, here's the thing. You come in with the weaker arm. You come in with, middling velocity, and the scouts say, hey, look, there's no room for this guy to grow. He is what he is. There's no room for him to grow, and he topped out in college. Yeah, he's beating up on these future insurance salesmen. Once he gets to the NFL and plays real DBs, it's going to be different. And he's not a pass-first, offense like the air raid that's inflating things. Now, the NFL has started to incorporate some air raid concepts. You even have an air raid offense more or less down there in Arizona right now. But, overall, most of the time, the prevailing theory is give me the guy with the tools and we'll coach him up. Rather than give me the guy with the mind whose tools are maxed out. I can't make his arm strength stronger, really. So that's why you have that mentality.
Okay, well, the only thing I was going to point out there with Case Keenum is for a long time in the NFL, they had something against the air raid. And there was just a belief that those guys couldn't make it and couldn't possibly be successful.
Trailblazed that,
That's
honestly.
what I'm saying.
I mean, he really was.
Right.
And so, because, prior to that, the most successful example, I believe, was Graham Harrell, who at least made a roster.
But that's about it.
Right. And so, the NFL, innovation in football comes from the bottom up. Innovation really starts at the high school level. It trickles into college, and then college, eventually it reaches the NFL, like the Wildcat and air raid, all like that. And so it's tough because you're prepping these guys coming up, and then they're not ready to do what's going on in the pro game. And you need more coaches that are willing to adjust to that. You need more coaches that are willing to adjust those concepts, do what these quarterbacks are good at. And you might see some more of those quarterbacks that maybe don't quite have the elite arm out there and go for it. The other side of that is you get somebody like Pat Mahomes with all the tools in the world and put him in the air raid, and oh my goodness. So,
yeah, but then you come back now to the current situation for the Broncos. They're on to another quarterback. So last year it was three quarterbacks throughout the course of the season. This year we're already to 3 quarterbacks. Slightly different styles. How Pat Shurmur designs things around Brett Rypien seems like it would be different than what he would do with Jeff Driscoll. And I thought what you said earlier about how he might be a better fit ultimately for what Pat Shurmur is going to want to do.
He's definitely a better fit. Gets the ball out quicker and comes from that West Coast background. Driscoll's, is a big arm, vertical kind of guy. Driscoll probably would have been a heck of an NFL quarterback for North Turner about 15 years ago, honestly. Guys handing the ball off 25 times a game. You only ask him to throw it about 18, 20 times a game. Most of that's going to be off PA and thrown it deep. And he probably would have been a heck of a quarterback in the 90s. But it's a different game now. And the thing about Driscoll, when you got a slow clock like that in a quick, much sped up game like it is now, where it's a lot more dink and dunk, you're just not going to be successful. I don't think that Pat Shurmur is going to get away from a lot of what he did. They're probably not going to be as much boot rollout type stuff as there was for Driscoll. Take advantage of his speed, but overall, I think the passing concepts are going to be pretty much the same.